Pittsburgh Steeler fans, it is time once again for another edition of the Curtain Call podcast. My name is Michael Beck, deputy editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, joined as always by one Mr. Geoffrey David Benedict, adding to the name tonight, changing up. How are you doing tonight, Geoffrey?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really good.
Nice. And the special guests are back. We're getting into the thick of draft season from Roll Bama Roll. Brent Taylor. Brent, how are you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, well, if I can be just as mysterious as Jeff was, then I'm doing good.
That's kind of one of my things, the verbal slips. I want to say it was about 2 weeks ago. I just had the worst sign off ever. I didn't know what to say. We're working on it. It's a work in progress.
So we're done here. I'm out.
You know what? I wouldn't blame you. I probably shouldn't have divulged that information, but we'll keep powering through. We'll get there. But speaking of Alabama prospects, of course, the Steelers and really both programs coming into this draft, they're tied together at so many spots. Seems like all the needs the Steelers have, the Alabama Crimson Tide are shooting a ton of prospects into the NFL ranks, as they always do, but it seems like they have 22 guys year in and year out going to the league. But specifically Mac Jones right now, Brent, he is someone that is obviously shooting up the draft board ranks. Where does he kind of rank in the previous year compared to the previous quarterbacks of the Alabama Crimson Tide? Where would you rank Mac Jones to just the guys of the past?
So I think I'd still put him behind Tua Tagovailoa just in terms of pure arm talent, physical abilities, and Tua. We've always known he's going to be a high ceiling prospect with a good chance of busting. He's just, he's kind of got that Brett Favre mentality. We're going for it, balls to the wall. Let's see what happens. And he may not pan out for the Dolphins. We'll see. Mac's a good bit safer, I think. The ceiling is not as high. He's gotten a lot of the Tom Brady comparisons that everyone loves, right? He takes the pictures of the dad bod and doesn't really show up athletically, but man, he just keeps making throws. And the coolest thing about Mac Jones is there's how well he stays within an offense and stays patient. So you'll see a lot of quarterbacks like, hey, they get pressured, they start making rush throws. Mac's like, nah, blitz me. I'm throwing to the guy I always wanted to throw to. You blitz me from that side, I'm throwing to that side. You blitz me from that side, I'm throwing right over you. So I think Alabama's not really had a whole lot of quarterbacks in the Saban era. There was A.J. McCarron, I guess. Yeah. And then Tua, and that's really been about it. So I'd still put Mac a little behind where Tua was if you're talking just pure raw potential. But he's well ahead of the rest of the crew.
Geoffrey?
Okay. You have a ton of offensive linemen coming out, right? There's a lot of focus here because the Steelers need tackles and they need center. You got two main starters coming off, and one at center, one at tackle. But I have a question for you: is because you got Leatherwood coming out of tackle, was he even the best tackle on Alabama last year?
No, the wrong guy won the Outland Trophy.
Yeah, watching film, I was like, wait, the other side.
Your eyes kind of keep going to the right, like, dude, what's this mountain of a dude on the right side doing that just never gets beat? Yeah, and yeah, that's Evan Neal. He's only a sophomore, so you got to wait a year.
Yeah,
but Alex Leatherwood was a very good left tackle. I would not put him in the same conversation as some of the previous Alabama left tackles, even like Cam Robinson or honestly even Cyrus Kwanjo. Jonah Williams was another one. I'd drop Alex Leatherwood a little behind all of those guys. He was a very good left tackle, but he had his struggles with a lot of particularly stunts and picking up kind of delayed blitzes is where he missed quite a few here and there. Now, Alex Leatherwood, I will say, as a freshman, played right guard. Freshman, I think he started their sophomore year as well. Or I may be mixing up my years. But honestly, he was a great guard and still a very good tackle. So that's kind of where I'd look at him there. And yeah, right tackle Evan Neal was awesome. And center Landon Dickerson, if you're picking an offensive lineman from Alabama this year, that's where you got to go.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me into my next question. Of course, Alex Leatherwood, you kind of see him through the draft process. He started off really high in the ranks of prospects, really, and he's gradually slipped over time. Now kind of seeming more like a day 2 pick more than anything. Landon Dickerson, like you said, really interesting with him because last really 4 seasons, he's been a starter all 4 years, not all of which being at Alabama, but all those seasons ending with injury. Now, do you think if Dickerson had been healthy throughout his entire college career, would this guy be a surefire day 1 pick?
I think he is anyway. I still think he's going to be at least top end of the first round spot in the draft. But yeah, the injury history is a problem. He's had multiple ACLs. I mean, hey, guys recover from ACLs better than ever. It's not like it's an Achilles or something like that. That's what wrecks people these days. But yeah, multiple knee injuries has been a problem. And that's honestly the only thing that would prevent me from saying, hey, he's a top 15 draft type of player. Just in terms of pure strength, I mean, he's one of the strongest guys on Alabama's team. In terms of attitude and personality, he's the leader. He's a lot of fun. I mean, how many offensive linemen do you see guys on Twitter like Cole Kubelik making highlight reels of a center? I mean, the dude's just out there pancaking everyone he can find 20 yards down the field. So you can't go wrong with him. People love him. He's a fan favorite kind of player.
Now, Geoffrey, before I let you take the next question, just continuing on Dickerson, he has some elite traits when it comes to size, like his arm length, his size. Have you seen a player like him coming out of that program before?
I mean, yeah, it's Alabama. I hate to sound like that, but yeah, we've seen plenty of centers at that 6'5", 310 with long arms. Alabama tends to recruit basically all offensive tackles out of high school and then move them inside as need be. It's just kind of how Nick Saban's always done it. So most guards and centers all wind up 6'4", 6'5" anyway. Yeah. So we've seen it plenty.
Must be nice.
Must
Geoffrey,
be nice.
All right. So one of the interesting things I've seen this offseason is kind of where Jalen Waddle and the other wide receiver just lost his name, Devonta Smith.
Only won a Heisman.
Yeah. What's that?
Who's that?
But we've seen them kind of fluctuate in who is considered better. And it surprises me because when you look at the stats and when I watch on film, like Devonta Smith really jumps out to me as being like the guy. And then Jalen Waddle is kind of the other guy. He's also really good, but he's not quite there. What do you take on a lot of people? I mean, a lot of people have Jalen Waddle going ahead of Devonta Smith. What's your thoughts on that and those two players?
Well, you can go back 4 years. In 2017, Devonta Smith came in the same class as Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy. And 4 years ago, who caught the game-winning touchdown as a true freshman in overtime to win a national championship? Devonta Smith. It wasn't any of the other true freshmen. The next year, he kind of gets a hamstring injury after he was leading the whole crew in receiving, gets a hamstring injury, misses a few games, drops behind him in stats. And then that's when Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs started getting all of the press. And, Henry Ruggs had the whole 4.26 40 or whatever ridiculous number it was. And Jerry Jeudy gets the highlight juke plays that starts making rounds on Twitter. So 2019 rolls around, and you got the same thing. Jalen Waddle's on the scene now. And Devontae Smith, while he's still leading the team in receptions, yards, touchdowns, important catches, all of the above, is the other three guys that get all of the media hype. Devontae Smith comes back for a senior season. Ruggs and Jeudy go first round. And now, Waddle's the next big thing. And instead, Devontae Smith just says, all right, I'm done with this. I'm going to actually win the Heisman as a receiver for the first time since 92.
Larry Fitzgerald was robbed, but sorry. Go ahead.
Larry Fitzgerald was absolutely robbed. I'm still mad about that one. But yeah, part of it is he's 175 pounds if you pulled him out of a rainstorm. And hey, he's a thin guy, but I don't think it matters. I really don't. You watch him and you're like, he's more than happy to lower a shoulder and go right into somebody for the first down. He goes up and over people. He outbodies people. He's faster than everyone. I mean, what else do you want of a best receiver in the nation? So yeah, that's where I'm at with that one.
Yeah. Okay. Now, those skill positions, so my goodness, you kick inside, someone that's a little bit more likely to end up in Pittsburgh would be Najee Harris, of course, and Doak Walker winner, who didn't win an award really in that offense for Alabama, but Najee Harris, of course, he also has some elite size for running back. His speed might be the one real knock against him, but when you look at Najee compared to some of the running backs that have come out over recent years, where would you compare him against guys like Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram and Josh Jacobs?
Well, yeah, as you guys as Pittsburgh Steelers, you've seen Le'Veon Bell, and I think that's a very unique running style, and Najee Harris is fairly similar. He's got that same kind of 6'2", 6'3", 230 pounds, and when he came to Alabama, there's a lot of the immediate comparisons to Derrick Henry. 6'3", 240, but they have totally different styles. So whereas Derrick Henry, as big as he is, he's a home run speed threat. He'll run through someone, but for the most part, you kind of want to get Derrick Henry running out outside of the tackles, get him in some open field, and nobody's got a chance. Najee is a lot more of a short yardage, in tight spaces. He can make absolutely anyone miss. He's got the really choppy feet. He can go around them, over them, through them, whatever the move is, he can do it. But early in his career, he had some issues with patience, running into linemen a lot, and being way too quick to kind of backtrack, bounce outside. As he got older, he got a lot better there. A lot of people don't realize this. He was a kind of 4 to 5 star recruit as a receiver as well in high school. So the dude can catch, he can move, he's great, like modern NFL that way. Hey, passing game, running game, whatever. But if you're looking at him as a home run threat, get you 50-yard chunk plays, beat people to the sidelines, it's not going to happen. So I guess if I'm ranking him and the Alabama backs in the Saban era, Derrick Henry's an alien. So Derrick Henry, Mark Ingram just had a feel for the game that not many running backs have. Trent Richardson, he busted bad in the NFL, but as a college back, I've seen nobody better at just plowing through people. So I think I'd put Najee fourth, but definitely ahead of Josh Jacobs and Damian Harris, Bo Scarborough, and Eddie Lacy.
Okay. All right. Going to the defensive side, Dylan Moses was going to be like the extreme high end of the first round kind of pick before his injury. Can you tell us what you saw after his injury? Do you think this is a player who's could still recover and get back some more, or do you think he's back? I remember seeing interviews where he was talking about the pain he was going through just even trying to play early in the season. Do you think there's more that he will be coming back even more than he has so far, or do you think what we saw in 2020 is what Dylan Moses is now after that injury?
I think he can get some better than what we saw in 2020. I don't think we're ever going to see the top 10 linebacker that many people thought he would be. If you followed him, Dylan Moses was that dude that made a bunch of rounds in kind of the earlier days of recruiting, getting into Twitter. He was that 7th grader that LSU offered a scholarship to, and it made a whole bunch of news then. And the reason why, he was a 220, 240 pound guy by like freshman year of high school that ran a 4.40 and turned heads. He played running back then, but ended up moving to linebacker later in high school. So that's what everybody saw. Like, hey, this dude he's big, he's fast, and he's been the best recruit on the planet since 7th grade. And he came to Alabama. He kind of played edge rusher a little his freshman year. Actually looked pretty good as an edge rusher, I thought. And then moved to kind of a weak side off ball linebacker as a sophomore. And he played well. His speed definitely flashed a lot. He had some good tackles. Had some issues. First year starter, you're going to miss a lot here and there. And then the injury happened. And when he came back from the injury, everyone says, okay, he's a senior now. He looked pretty good as a sophomore, showed the talent. He's going to be a superstar. Like, slow down there a little bit. And he was honestly the 4th best of the 4 linebackers for Alabama this year. And he did improve over the season, but he played very tentative all season, did not show the speed he used to have, didn't really ever. You catch a lot of instances of there's a big pile at the line of scrimmage and he kind of backs out while everybody else is jumping in. How much of that is fear of the injury coming back? You just don't know.
Now, kicking out to outside on that defensive scheme, Patrick Surtain, another unbelievable year. Where would you see him ranking in the kind of hierarchy of those cornerbacks? And a lot of people say he's the top guy. Would you agree with that?
Oh, he's up there. I've seen, especially this season. Now, his first 2 seasons, a little rocky here and there, but he showed consistent improvement every season. And man, this year he was awesome. I think he gave up 2. There's really only 2 moments. There's one against Tennessee on a deep shot, and one in the SEC championship against Florida, where I don't know. I think he had a brain fart. He was sitting there in like perfect coverage, had the dude boxed out, and then just forgot to jump for it. I don't know. No clue on that one. But other than that, the dude was absolutely perfect all season. And the biggest difference we saw from freshman year to junior year was his tackling. We kind of ragged on him a good bit as a freshman for pulling out of tackles, letting some other guys do the gang tackling, kind of back away. But by his junior year, the dude was laying some people out, especially he loved the wide receiver screens. Just take out a dude. So compared to former Alabama corners, D. Milliner's still tough to beat. And he's another one that really busted with the Jets, and I didn't expect it. But D. Milliner as a college corner, man, that dude was special. Minka Fitzpatrick, you guys know Minka. And it's a little different position. He played kind of the outside corner, inside corner, safety, moved around, whereas Surtain's an outside corner. So I'd still put him behind those 2. I'd put him ahead of Drake or Patrick. Definitely ahead of Trayvon Diggs.
I will say, if he's drafted by the Steelers, it would be kind of the kiss of death, because when we draft a cornerback, they're usually terrible in the NFL. So for his sake, maybe he goes to another team. But Geoffrey, do you want to follow that one up?
Yeah, we're gonna. My personal draft crush, the guy I most want for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know it's unlikely. I tell people it's unlikely we'll take him because defensive line is not exactly a big need for the Steelers. But Christian Barmore reminds me of Cameron Hayward and Stephon Tuitt, and just how he just wrecks whatever the offense is trying to do. He's just there to destroy it. Tell us about Christian Barmore.
He's been an interesting guy. He's one of those that for 2 years, every Alabama fan has been like, put Christian Barmore in more. And like, especially last year as a redshirt freshman last year, every time he'd come in, all of a sudden, like Alabama's defense was not doing great in 2019, at least compared to usual. And gotta get that in there, right? But he every time he'd come in, all of a sudden he'd just be in the backfield, and there's chaos and there's havoc, and you're like, why is he not playing more? It kind of leaked a lot. Like maybe there were, I don't know if it was work ethic or academic or whatever reason he was in and out of Nick Saban's doghouse for quite a while. And then coming into this season, you're like, okay, now he's finally going to be a full-time starter. And he tweaks his knee like a week before the season starts. Kind of plays, doesn't, but rotates in and out for really the first half of the season. It was mostly ineffective when he was there. And then right through the end, all of a sudden you could see him. It was that same thing we saw the year before. Like now he's getting it. Now he's turning it on. Now every time we see him, he's a 310-pound dude just eating a quarterback. Yeah. So he's been hot and cold. There's not been a consistent production from him. That's always going to make me a little nervous. But hey, the ceiling is very high.
We got a couple minutes left with you here, Brent. When we look at these Alabama prospects and kind of predicting where this draft will kind of wind up and looking at the Steelers' 24th pick, let's just say in a world where Mac Jones, Najee Harris, Landon Dickerson are all on the board, out of those three, who would be your pick?
Landon Dickerson. I love Najee, but he's also a running back. And yeah. Mac Jones would probably be a good pick, especially at 24. I think that's a good value. And I'm assuming Roethlisberger's on his kind of final legs there. I'm not totally sure, but
same with us.
Nobody knows.
I don't even know if Ben knows.
Yeah. So the thing with Mac is he is a quarterback that's not going to Brett Favre his way to a win. He needs to be in a system with a coordinator that has a lot of a strong design and an idea for a game plan. He's not a freelancer, that's for sure. So, but if you want a guy that, look, 10 years from now is still the rock of a offense, let's go Landon Dickerson.
Nice. Any guys that you're looking at from this team that might be slipping later rounds of the draft, undrafted, guys that they're kind of getting overlooked in this process that stand out to you as someone who could really, pull off, be a good contributor, be a good player, be a starter on an NFL team? Any guys stand out to you?
So I really like linebacker Josh Mcmillan. He is a redshirt senior, actually a sixth-year senior. That was I think mechanical engineering, could have been aerospace engineering major, got through college, did a master's of some sort as well, and just kind of stuck it out. And at Alabama, a lot of times, if you're not starting by junior year, most guys transfer. He didn't. He stayed 6 years and was in line to start 2 years ago and tore his ACL right before the season. Never got back in, kind of got passed up by some freshmen, but came back for a sixth year this year. And he worked as a backup linebacker, but was also a major contributor on special teams, basically every single unit, as a punt blocker, punt gunner, kick blocker, kick gunner, all of the above. And he started playing some fullback and ended up becoming Alabama's short yardage fullback guy. And I'll tell you what, he was awesome at it. Every time he blocked, he was taking some dude out the back of the end zone. And he's a guy that had a lot of clout within the team, within the locker room. A lot of guys really liked him. And if you're looking at a 7th round pick, maybe an undrafted free agent, that he's never going to be a starter, but he's a good sized, solid linebacker that could be a backup, big guy on special teams, core special teams guy, and hey, play a little fullback and tight end too. That'd be a good one to have.
Yeah.
Now, as we get to the top of the first half hour of the show, I want to ask you, Brent. No, excuse me, name flub. Oh, goodness me, that's just the worst. How do I do that?
Hey, I hear it all the time. The Brett or Brent sounds exactly the same to most people, so I never even know the difference. If you mess it up, I won't even know.
Oh, okay. I'll not stay awake up all night thinking that. But anyway, when it comes to players that you faced, that the Crimson Tide faced this past year, is there anyone that sticks out in mind that you said, "Ooh, that guy is someone to look out for," and someone that you could see in this year's upcoming draft that might make an impact in the NFL?
I'm gonna go first name top of my head is Ole Miss's Kenny Yeboah. He was a tight end from where was he at Boston College? Maybe that sounds right. I think it was Boston College. Transferred to Ole Miss, and I had no clue who he was. And then he put up 300 something yards or whatever in Alabama. We could not figure out how to cover the dude, but he's a big tight end with really good speed. So that's one that really stuck out to me for sure.
I was actually requested for me to ask you about a tight end from Alabama, Miller Forestall,
Okay,
who made a name there as a pretty good blocker. What do you think? What do you think he brings to an NFL team?
so Miller was actually a quarterback in high school, and a fairly good one until he got unseated by a guy named Trevor Lawrence. And in order to keep playing football, had to switch positions. So that's when he became a tight end. And he was actually a really kind of a 6'6", skinny, really athletic tight end. He came to Alabama. Alabama prefers blocking tight ends, so we kind of forced him to gain a good bit of size. It took him a few years. I made a lot of jokes his first couple of years, like, "Hey, you throw a screen to his side, it's going to get Forestalled." And yeah, it was bad, but he got better every year at blocking. He had a pretty rough injury and gained some more size during that early on. So by his senior year, he was a good to very good blocker. Good hands, not much speed to speak of, but if you want to throw the little kind of a 10-yard fade route to a sidelines, he'll probably catch it over the defender, get your first down. So if you have a solid tight end number 3 or so, that can be a good blocker. He'd be a good maybe 6th or 7th round flyer pick.
Okay.
Awesome. Now, Geoffrey, do you have any other questions for Brent?
That's it for me.
All right. Well, we kind of look like we're going to wrap up our time with you, Brent. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything you want to plug on your way out?
Just follow us, Roll Bama Roll, and I'm BT Bama 22. I mostly just tweet from the actual Roll Bama Roll account, though. So yeah, that's mostly it. I do a lot of recruiting coverage, NFL coverage this time of year, and it's mostly Alabama centric, so you guys probably don't care. But hey, if you got any Alabama fans up in Pittsburgh, check us out.
Yeah, it's also still like half the first round picks.
That is true. Yeah.
Brent, thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
So for everyone else still tuning in here, we are going to move into the second half of our show just after a quick break. So if you're listening on the audio side, make sure to flip over to part 2. If you're with us on Facebook or YouTube, just hang tight. Pittsburgh Steeler fans, we are back for the second half of the curtain call. The first half of our show, we spent some time with Brent Taylor from Roll Bama Roll, SB Nation's Alabama Crimson Tide blog. Of course, as we get closer and closer to the draft, we're going to have more and more of content like that for you with some of these college pages and kind of breaking down some of the prospects. So by all means, if there's some schools that you want us to cover, I'm sure you could sway our opinion if you load those live chats, or if you tweet at us on Twitter, comment on the website, what have you. We'd love to get some submissions from you guys. But Geoffrey, off the top of our second half of our podcast here, which of these Alabama guys do you think could really fit the best in the Steeler system?
I was really intrigued and wanted to check out Alex Leatherwood because I'm all about getting an offensive tackle in the first round, and I had to back off of that because watching him play, I was like, I'm not a huge fan of his game. He could fit here, but there's a lot of projection. There's a lot of projection involved in that, and with your first round pick, the Steelers usually don't go for a guy who, we can develop into being a player. So for me, first round, I do really like their center. Those medicals, that's rough. The medical issues are rough, but Steelers are going to have a center. And if you're looking at a center in the draft who can step in day one and be a starter, if he's healthy, that's your guy. If you want a center who could also play guard, that's your guy. Like, he's that kind of a player. I could see him in round 1. And of course, I just want Christian Barmore to be a Pitt Steeler. That's what I want. So that fits in there. But yeah, there's some options there. I'm a big fan of the center. I am not a Mac Jones guy. I honestly, watching Mac Jones, he is to me a more NFL ready version than what Mason Rudolph was when he came out. And I'm like, that's what we have. Like, you'd be like, yeah, we're going to draft a guy in the first round to be what Mason Rudolph is right now. That's not a great move.
Yeah, it'd kind of be like drafting Kyle Trask as well. Honestly, Trask to me is literally Mason Rudolph when Mason Rudolph was drafted. It's the same player. It doesn't make any sense from that side of things, but just a little bit more just Bama-centric talk before we kind of move into some of the Steelers news. Of course, it's that time of year where there's tons of stuff coming out, but right now, especially when the Steelers are on the clock at 24, if they don't sign someone, I have a feeling if they spend any considerable money on anyone and shave enough money down, it will be for a big-time center. I'll put that in quotations. Corey Linsley might be a little too high of a star, although he is from the Pittsburgh area. But if they don't sign someone, I wouldn't be surprised if Landon Dickerson would be the first-round pick. Would you have concern with that? Like, because literally he's had 4 starting seasons. He absolute beast in college football. I want to say he started at Florida State before jumping to Alabama. Would you have concern with someone with that amount of injury history?
Yeah, I mean, it's like every year you got to question that. I don't like bringing him up in this context, but we saw that with Ryan Shazier. We saw with Ryan Shazier where he came to Pittsburgh and he was injured. And then he would play phenomenal, and then he's injured. I don't want that again. I don't want to go that route, especially when you get emotionally invested with a player and then their career's over, and right as they get really, really, really good. So there's question marks there, and that's something as the Steelers you have to really look into and evaluate, especially if you're talking a first round pick. And I agree. I think he's good enough, especially at his size, that he is not going to be there when we pick in the second round.
Yeah, it's just elite size. If he isn't gone in the first round, he'll be gone early in the second. That's kind of the way I see it. Creed Humphrey, of course, could be the the other second round pick. Outside of that, there's a bunch of guys that could go in the third, but the Steelers aren't going to start a third round pick at center on day one with Ben Roethlisberger potentially playing the last year of his career for a team that still thinks they're a contender. It just isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, I know you touched on Mac Jones a little bit, but to say these top quarterbacks are all off the board. Mac Jones is still available. Do you see value in Jones at 24? Do you see value at any quarterback after those top 4 guys are gone?
I don't see value with even towards the bottom of that top 4. I don't. I'm gonna commit some behind the steel curtain heresy here. I don't like Trey Lance as a quarterback. I don't want Trey Lance. I know that's like everyone in here is like Trey Lance is the guy. I'm not that guy. I'm not all about Trey Lance. So yeah,
he was 19 when he did what he did. 19, Geoffrey. 19.
I know. But some guys cap early. Some guys cap out early. Like when we drafted Juju Smith-Schuster, I was like, Juju Smith-Schuster is NFL ready, but what's he going to grow? And that's like, I think we've seen kind of there is a limit to how much better he's going to get. Just simply because he was that guy. At 19, he was super mature, ready to go. I think it can be that kind of situation. I don't know. We'll see how he does, but I'm not huge on Trey Lance.
Wow, that's a pretty hot take. I think I can hear Jeff Hartman typing away right now. Our Slack channel
he's typing my resignation letter right now, Steelers style.
You're going to sign this.
Resign.
Oh my goodness.
That's gonna be fun. But then I have to admit, in all honesty, I'm not a Trevor Lawrence fan. I think he is overrated. But I'm a quarterback hater overall. Am.
Chris Sims released his quarterback rankings list, and you know what? Year in, year out, he gets absolutely slagged for these lists. But he's typically right. It's free. Like he had Patrick Mahomes as the top quarterback in 2018. He had Lamar Jackson as the top guy in 2019, with Josh Allen number 2 and Baker Mayfield 3, and then Sam Darnold after that, and then Josh Rosen after that. He's been on it. He had Zach Wilson number 1, which is still Zach Wilson's got a ton of arm talent, but that is a hot take. But the thing is, the guy's been right so often. He had Trey Lance number 6 behind Kellen Mond, Mac Jones. Like that was surprising to me. I can't see the draft ending up that way. But
when I see a guy like him, Chris Sims, I actually like reading his stuff because he has something he really values in players. And in quarterbacks, he's that guy who wants hero ball. Like prime Ben Roethlisberger, what Patrick Mahomes can do. He is that guy. He wants a quarterback that can play hero ball, and that's your Zach. That's that guy, man. That's what he does, good or bad. It's going that route. So I like using him in that regard. I look at him and I say, okay, if you're looking at upside with just someone being like, I'm taking over this game and doing it, who do you want? Chris Sims is like, he really angles those guys out and says, this is the guy you want. So I think that's partly why he's right, is because guys who just fit their system in college tend to have trouble in the NFL because defenses are different. Your system can't just be what it was in college.
Yeah, you know what? With Chris Sims too, I know he took a lot of heat for that list today because he's the only person really to go against the grain on Trevor Lawrence. But he's not a shock take guy. Like I genuinely listen to his podcast quite often. It's pretty good stuff. So to completely plug someone that doesn't need a plug, there you go, Chris Sims. You're welcome. Shoot it back our way.
We're building his career right here. He'll be famous someday.
Good luck, kid. Who knows? Maybe he'll even play quarterback in the NFL at some point.
Man.
Anyway, a little bit more Alabama talk because there is some Steelers stuff I do want to get to as well. But Najee Harris specifically, there's a ton of people super, super high. And like Brent was saying, he does kind of shape into that mold of Le'Veon Bell. I definitely see the comparison. It makes sense to me. Running back, first round at all. Is that your top running back? Is that the guy you'd want on the Steelers? How would you even feel in general just about running backs in the first round?
All right. A running back pick in the NFL, you're drafting it for 2 or 3, maybe 4 years. If you're lucky, it's a Le'Veon Bell situation, and you get them for what we have them for 5. Like that's what you're drafting for. You're drafting for 2 years of high impact, and then a couple more years of really good, and then let them go. That makes sense if that's what you need. If you can sit there and say, okay, like for me, if the Steelers sign a starting center that you can plug in and say, bam, we're good there, right? You deal with the offensive line that way. In my opinion, if we get a really good center, then you can go with Banner and Okorafor at tackles and draft another guy or sign a backup rotational guy, whatever you got to do. You're pretty solid there if you have that top center. You don't really need to draft someone high. In that circumstance, you've got 3 wide receivers. Let's say we get someone at tight end. You've got the offense pretty well in good shape. You don't need to draft really anyone on defense this year. Yeah, get that running back, because if he can do, like, if you imagine what Josh Jacobs did his rookie season and you put it on the offense we had last year, right? If you just add in a running back that can carry a run game into the Steelers last year, that offense is significantly better. That offense doesn't fall apart. And it's not relying on tricks to get the run game going. You're able to do it. So to me, yeah, that's a difference maker. If your defense is fine and you solve the offensive line, then running back is a huge difference maker, and that's going to push your right now Super Bowl window. We're pushing for a Super Bowl in the next 2 years. We're all in on Ben. Go for it.
Yeah, you know what? If the Steelers are all in on Ben and they sign a center, I just can't see them not doing that. Even if it was a minor move, say B.J. Finney, if he becomes available, then they probably draft someone in the middle rounds, but that still means Finney's starting. If they're all in on Ben, then I can still see them go running back in the first round, as much as people being against it. Like, I'm definitely kind of against that, but I can understand why they do that. But Just Me uses the super chat feature. She puts $5 in the tip jar. Thank you so much for that, Just Me. Geoffrey, I'll let you answer this first. She asked, do you see us picking any quarterback? If so, who, and any center?
I think you have to get an interior lineman. Even if we bring in a veteran, an interior lineman has to go somewhere that can be a backup. I do see us taking a center. I think Dickerson has a real shot with how this free agency period looks to be going. Although we're seeing some more players cut. Houston just cut their center. We're seeing some stuff like that. So there's some free market stuff out there. There's a good chance we draft a center, even if it's not in the first round, even if it's to be a backup. As to the quarterback, I don't think we draft a quarterback high right now. I think they're going to let Mason Rudolph and Ben Roethlisberger be the guys until they're not, especially this year. If the Steelers do draft a quarterback, I have no clue who they would draft, honestly. Beyond the top round, if they go for a guy there, they'll just take the best guy available if they want a top quarterback. Beyond that, quarterback is an interesting thing, because if they draft a backup quarterback, right? If they take a lower ranking quarterback, look at the traits that guy brings. Look at what he does well. Is he a guy that moves a lot? Is he a runner? What are the traits this guy brings? Because that's going to tell you a lot about what the Steelers want to do in Matt Canada's offense beyond Ben Roethlisberger. It'll tell you a lot. So that's the only thing I can tell you with quarterbacks. I don't see us taking one high. I think they are all in on Ben for this year, and I think they're all in. They're all in on Ben until Ben legit hangs it up or just can't play. If he was Peyton Manning in that last Broncos season where he was not at all the quarterback he was anymore, they would be still starting Ben, right? That's the Rooney family. They are all in on him. And Mason Rudolph behind him. I think they would give Mason Rudolph a shot. And I believe the reports that some people in the organization are kind of upset that Mason Rudolph isn't going to get a shot this year, because they believe in him. They think he's legit. And they might lose him before they ever get a chance to see if he's good, if he's a legit starter or not. So I think it's those two. I think it's Rudolph and Roethlisberger for now. And if you see a quarterback drafted, look at what he does, because that's the future.
Yeah. To answer the same question, the Steelers for sure will take a center. I wouldn't be surprised with Dickerson in the first. Some people might freak out at that. He is a first round talent, period. If he didn't have injury issues, he might even be a top half of the first round pick. He elite size, elite strength, elite, like literally across the board. He is an elite level prospect, except he has had problems with injuries.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised by that. As much as I want the Steelers to trade up, as opposed to Geoffrey Benedict for one Mr. Trey Lance, I just can't see it happening. I think this team is pretty realistic when it comes to their future. Like I think that they probably they know they're all in, but there's a chance they could kind of flame out here with Ben Roethlisberger if he comes out and he's terrible. How much are you really willing to give up in future years draft picks? Because that's what it's going to take to try to move up to get a guy like Trey Lance. I don't like the quarterback classes coming up the next couple of years. So that makes it a little scary. So I kind of foresee the path of Mason Rudolph being the starting quarterback after Ben Roethlisberger, like you were saying, Geoffrey. So if they're going to draft anyone, I could see it potentially being like a Jamie Newman or even a Kellen Mond in the mid rounds, but I just don't see it happening. I think they'll add someone, but nothing with a lot of glitz behind the name. But heading into some more pure just Steeler stuff, not just Alabama centric. One NFL exec today came out and said, expect next week to be a massacre when it comes to cuts. And me hearing that kind of makes me sick to my stomach a little bit. I know we've been talking about it basically for a year now, Geoffrey, that we really just don't see them making a ton of the cap space. I mean, coming down much at all. But it seems like that's what teams are really prepping for. Are you worried about this player massacre, which apparently is going to happen next week? And if so, who do you think on the Steelers is going to get the axe?
Well, I'm not just worried about it. It angers me. It really, really upsets me because it's NFL owners coming together and they're not saying, look, I can't afford to lose money. There's an easy way to not lose money. Drop the floor. Just drop the floor. Go to the players and say, look, we'll give you a higher cap than what probably should exist, but you've got to let us drop the floor so teams can survive. The players would do that. They do it because they know that 25 teams would spend more and you'd have 6 or 7 teams spend less, and that's it. But this is NFL owners coming in and saying, not only we don't want to spend more money. This is them coming in and saying, we want you to stop us from spending money. And that's a totally different thing. That's what the salary cap does for owners. So when owners want to lower salary cap, they're telling the NFL, please tell me how to spend my money because I don't want to spend it. And they're putting that above the product on the field. They're putting that above the fans. They're putting that above the long-term survivability of their team. Kansas City is going to be ripped to shreds. Like, teams that are good are going to be torn apart. Why? So that Mike Brown doesn't lose money? Just let him not spend money. He manages to not spend money anyways. Like, come on. When the Steelers were low on cash, they took on a partner. You know, you can sell your team. You can take on partners. You can find ways to get rid of this money and cover for it. The owners we talk all the time. The owners always say, like the owners take the financial risk. Well, the risk has finally come due. And what are the owners doing with it? They're dumping it on the players. That's what they do. So to me, it just angers me. And it tells the NFL doesn't care about the NFL. They care about the money they make. That's what it says to me. If the cap drops, if this all happens, it's ridiculous and it's bad. I hate it. But onto the Steelers side of that, I don't actually see a lot of players getting cut. We'd need to free up. I think we're 12 million over and a 180 cap right now or something like that.
Roughly with the rollover, if you count the restructure to Hayward, Vance, Pouncey, And I don't know if I mentioned the rollover. I probably did, but
Yeah.
I think roughly it puts them in like a $7.5 million range.
Right. So for me, you got guys like Hayden and Vince Williams that are cuttable people that make even just as much sense to extend and just drop their hit this year as low as you possibly can. Hayden, I mean, if you can get him so his cap hit this year is $3 million above dead money, there's no reason not to do that. Even $4 million above dead money, he's worth $4 million. He's worth that. You're not going to replace Joe Hayden for under $4 million. You're just not. Vince Williams, you could probably get his hit down to just $1 million or so over his dead money right now. You can do these things. They've got plenty of people. Stephon Tuitt is another candidate for it. You can push him down the road. You could add another year onto his deal. He's got this year and next year left. Make it a 3-year deal and push money back. The cap is going to skyrocket. This year, seriously, it may not be great, even if depending on how soon they can get fans in the stands. There's concern about that, which is why I understand the NFL being nervous about money. But it's gonna skyrocket. New television deals, all this stuff. The cap's gonna go up. It's not gonna stay low. So push the money back. Keep these guys together. If for goodness sakes, if Kansas City and the Saints have to tear themselves apart, like if Kansas City has to cut serious players and you can put the Steelers back together, you can make a run. Like you can be that team. This is not, in my opinion, the year to punt and say, well, let's bow out of this year and then try to rebuild. No, if everyone's falling apart, go for it. Like, just go for it. That's my thoughts.
Man, if there was a free agent team 33 of free agents, they could compete for a Super Bowl.
That's
legit.
True. Yeah.
It could be scary how much talent there could be in that second wave. Because how many veterans? I was talking about this with Demetrius Harvey, who covers the Jaguars for SB Nation. His concerns, the players looking for their third contract, because all of a sudden there's no money for like that aging star that still has it, but. Are they going to play for vet minimum? Probably not. That's the risk a lot of these players are going to. Looking at the NHL, professional hockey, what I kind of saw happen in that league that had a flat cap, the money dried up like that super quick. And then the top free agents that were left were mostly still the top free agents that were there at the beginning, slowly got picked off on like near minimum deals. That's basically what it came to if they wanted to play at all. That's probably what will happen in the NFL too. So the faster these players take contracts, once that first wave is gone, that second wave of free agents, there's not going to be a lot of money left. So if the Steelers can dig themselves out of a hole here, they could still potentially bring guys in just because there's no money left around the league. Do you see the Steelers bringing someone in because of just taking advantage of a situation like that happening?
That would be an interesting one. I don't know. It'd have to be someone. They'd have to have a reason to come here, right? I can see building super teams. I could see that happening. Team players just being like, you know what? Boom, put me on Tampa Bay for a season. If you guys are gonna give me a minimum contract, I'll go to Tampa Bay and get a minimum contract. And Tom Brady would be like, I'll play for peanuts. Doesn't matter. I'll go ask my wife if I have permission to play for free because she makes twice as much as I do. And then that's honestly the part I'm jealous with Tom Brady about, is how much his wife makes, because she makes all the NFL players look poor. Yeah, what was I even talking about? I don't know. Anyways,
Giselle, you want to do a podcast on Giselle for an hour?
No, stop. Anyways, yeah. How many players would do that? They'd be like, yeah, I'll go there, and they would sign that team. I don't know if the Steelers could draw that kind of attention where people would look to the Steelers and be like, they're the super team. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I already gave my free agent signing away earlier today. I'm a big fan of Jonnu Smith from the Tennessee Titans. I would love to see him come in and be our number one, probably. Him and Eric Ebron at tight end would be phenomenal. There's options for some players. There's some players from the Pittsburgh area that could come back. Who knows?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Ebron's name. I was just going to ask that. I feel like if anyone's going to get cut, he's kind of lucky that Vance McDonald retired. I know he had a team option that probably would have got Vance out of town regardless. But Eric Ebron kind of feels like the top cut candidate to me. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would, because I don't know how he's going to fit Matt Canada's offense. Matt Canada's tight ends do everything. They're like a Juju Smith-Schuster, only they're tight ends. That's his idea of a tight end. And that's what he goes for. That's not Eric Ebron. But on the same side of that, Ben and Eric were good. Ben and Eric Ebron were good together. Aside from a couple games where everyone was dropping the ball, those two were really good.
Yeah. Now, something I could kind of see happening, I want to say it was the 2010 Patriots draft when they got Gronkowski and Hernandez. They came to that draft literally with no tight ends on that roster. It was like the guys that were there were like practice squad guys, maybe. Like, seriously, that was their biggest hole by far. I could kind of see the Steelers like potentially trade back, get like a Pat Freiermuth out of Penn State, and then again go tight end, say like a Tommy Tremble in the 4th or 5th out of Notre Dame. Could you see them doing something like that's not a very Steelers-y kind of move, but could you see something like that happen?
Yeah, that would be a very Matt Canada move. That would be building the Matt Canada offense, because Matt Canada, one thing he has everywhere he goes, right? People talk about Matt Canada quarterbacks. I've seen comments in the chat about him. He has used stationary quarterbacks and run. He's used running quarterbacks and run. He's used all kinds of running backs, wide receivers, all kinds of stuff. The one consistent thing he uses everywhere he goes is wing backs. And they have to be able to take those little underneath passes, which are basically runs, or take a handoff in a counter, a wing back counter, which is one of my favorite runs. They have to be able to do that. They have to be able to block. They have to be able to run routes. And that's a big thing you've seen. That's why I think Jalen Samuels is going to be around, because he's not the greatest, but he can do it. He can play that position. Derek Watt, people want him cut because they think he's overpaid, but he's one of those guys that can play wing back. He's going to stick around. So they need to rebuild that area of the team. And you don't want to go into the season with Jalen Samuels and Derek Watt being pegged in for, major snap counts. That's not winning football. So I'm interested to see what they do in a position where tight end, wing back, slot receiver, running back are all kind of melded together into a couple of positions that are a little different than what we see now. So we could see some double dipping in the draft to solve that problem.
Now, today, March 3rd, if I'm not completely wrong, Wednesday, March 3rd, right? I think I'm right. Anyway, basically 2 weeks from today is the start of the new league year. Of course, we have this massacre term being thrown around. What's kind of your bold prediction out of the Steelers over these next 2 weeks before this league year actually starts?
Before the league year actually starts, I got a couple. I don't know how bold they are. One I brought up before, Ben Roethlisberger. I don't think he takes a pay cut. That's number one. They push his money back, but I don't think he takes a pay cut.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
Number two, I'm gonna go. They don't cut anybody. I'm going with they don't cut anybody.
They don't have to. They really don't. They don't.
Everyone's like they're over and they're going to tear the team apart. I don't think they do. I think they just keep it around. I don't know if I have another one. I think that's it for now.
Yeah, no,
I really think they just stand pat.
I can see that. Like, they lost Marquise Pouncey to retirement. Like, how could you cut any more voices? That's why I'm like, cutting Joe Hayden would be ridiculous. That's like, that's just putting a knife into the heart of the locker room. Like, Joe Hayden's that guy. Everyone loves Joe Hayden.
Yeah.
You point to me someone that's met Joe Hayden and tell me that they hate them. I'd tell you that person's a liar. No one hates Joe Hayden. There's no way.
Maybe quarterbacks. There's probably Lamar Jackson might hate him because he's made him look bad.
Yeah, honestly. But even then, he's probably like, yeah, I still respect that dude.
It's a good dude.
He's so nice. Yeah.
How did he get that ball?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you that if we're going to see any cut, it could be one, maybe two guys if the Steelers decide they want to transition away from Vince Williams, an inside linebacker. I could potentially see that. And this tight end market's starting to fill up with, like, every day there's tight ends getting cut. So I could see Eric Ebron end up being a casualty just because there's going to be a ton of cheap options available. That might be a little bit better than Eric Ebron. So I could see that kind of happening as well. But we're at the top of our show here. So, Geoffrey, if there's anything else you want to say before we tune out?
I'll plug my film room coming up. I actually have to finish and submit it. My poor editors. I do film rooms late at night, so they never know when they're coming, when they get submitted. But probably Friday with where I'm looking at submitting it now on Stephon Tuitt and TJ Watt versus the Baltimore Ravens in Week 8. Tuitt is a Raven destroyer, and it shows. But it's also a good look at what makes TJ Watt so successful and how good Stephon Tuitt is. Check that one out. I'm also doing a piece on the roster heading into free agency and what people bring, what we have, depth on the roster, and what our potential needs are.
Awesome. Looking forward to that. Just Me puts another $2 in the tip jar. Says she loves Behind the Steel Curtain. Thank you, Just Me. That's really nice.
And the $2 brings it to $7.
Oh, that's true. Oh,
so
good omens.
That's our magic number here, people.
Good omens.
Steelers magic number.
Oh, Ben, trophies. Oh.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Exactly. Well, I guess with all that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel, liking our pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and you're clicking over to the website. There's tons of content, Steelers related, articles on everything. All the players getting cut from around the league. We got a big super article on that going out. If you want to be in the know for the NFL, Behind the Steel Curtain is the place to go. That rhymed. Drop the mic on that and just close the show now. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. Much appreciated. We'll see you guys next week.